Hey guys, welcome to my channel. This is Texas De La Rosa. I'm here with my lovely, lovely ladies here. These two people are the people that helped me get into a home. Yes, that's right, guys. Today we're going to be talking about buying a house and how crazy it is. So I want to introduce my lovely friend, Miss
Kristin Stark.
Yep.
I'm a lender.
Jennifer Ferrara.
Perfect. And she was my realtor. So I've had so many questions about buying a home over the last, I'd probably say maybe even 6 months or so from my own personal self. And then I also have had questions from some of you guys that have asked, how did you get into a home and what's going on with that? The market's crazy. And so this lovely lady, Miss Kristin, is the numbers person. She is the one you want to know, and she's the lender. And so we're going to talk about a little bit about how I got into buying a home. Again, Austin, Texas is crazy right now. It is crazy. The rates are crazy. The houses are crazy. The market's crazy. Everything's crazy. And I still got into a home, and it's a home that I love. And so, so very, very thankful for these lovely ladies. But again, let's give a little background on Kristin. So Kristin, tell us a little about yourself.
Okay. I've been in lending for 15 years. I got into this in 2007, so probably the worst time to ever get into it, but then I stayed. And then about 4 years ago, I decided to go off on my own and start lending because I definitely lend a little differently than most. I really do try to focus on what you want, what you need, payments, what your pain points are. I try to make sure and get you exactly what you want. So that's a little bit about me.
Perfect. All right, cool. And then Jennifer, how long have you been a realtor? And then also, there we go. Yeah, a little about you.
So I got my license in New York City originally. I'm born and raised in Queens, New York, and I got my license right when I turned 18. So on and off at this point, a little over a decade, I've been a licensed agent. I got my license in Austin over COVID, actually. And it was such an interesting time to enter the market. And I met the lovely Kristin Stark, actually completely coincidentally. And we just kind of jumped in head first in Austin. And it's just one of those markets that really makes me so excited because it really is a homeowner. It really is people who value the quality of their life rather than just proximity. And Austin's just been such a fun city to do that in. But yeah, so I work a lot with first-time home buyers. I work a lot with investors and just meeting Texas. And I knew exactly what he was looking for. And we narrowed it down. And it was a lot of fun working with him.
So I will say this, guys, it was very quick. Let me tell you.
Hence the New Yorker.
Dude, I'm going to tell you. Yeah.
I still live on the New York minute.
New Yorker. Yeah, for sure. Man, I'm going to tell you guys, I was thinking about buying a home. Probably we've been thinking about buying a house for the past couple of years, but we just didn't pull the trigger. And so when I met Kristin back in, October of last year, maybe sometime?
Yeah.
I was doing her hair and makeup. So guys, this is how it works. This is so organically it all fell together. And that's what I honestly feel is the most important thing whenever you're looking to do something is it has to be organic. I feel like when it's forced, it just doesn't work. And, and I know a lot of people in real estate and things like that, but I'd never actually met a lender. And so I didn't know that the lender is the person that does the money. And they're like, they're how you get your...
You gotta hit the jackpot.
Right. That's how you find how much you can actually go buy a house for, what you're qualified for. So realtors, that's great. But again, I don't think I've known probably 4 or 5 lenders, but I didn't know really kind of what that meant. And so for me, it was interesting because when we were chatting, just while I was doing her hair and makeup for her business, it was interesting kind of getting her take on what was going on with things. And we just vibed really well, guys. You want to work with someone that vibes with you, man. I mean, we had such a good day working together and it was just, again, very organic. And then, I started kind of thinking, maybe let's get this kind of ball rolling. And then when I said that I was serious about it and started getting my information to Kristin, then she was like, okay, I got the perfect person for you. And this realtor is going to get everything that you need and she's going to hunt for you and she's going to help you. And let me tell you, Jennifer was crazy because she was literally sent me houses the very next day. And then, guys, she even flew to California to do a conference and was working from the plane, finding me a home still. So I was like, what the hell? This woman is literally on a plane and she's texting me back. I'm like, she's like, no, we got Wi-Fi here. We're good. So it was crazy. So I was really thankful to both of them for helping me and Aaron get into our place. And so again, I just wanted to share it with them and share their knowledge with you guys, because again, I know that somebody had some questions. I know that when we were looking at questions, I had some questions about this. let me pull those up real fast. So one of the questions someone asked me was, let's see here. Okay, cool. All right, so perfect.
I like the organization.
All right, so, and this is going to be for you, Kristin. Okay, so as a lender, how hard is it for a person to get a home?
Okay. Well, it just depends on
Loaded.
That's a pretty vague question, but you know what? I think
it's a good one.
It's a question that people ask. They just want to know, how hard is it to get a home?
Yeah. So, I mean, basically, with every single person, you have to do an application. You have to submit documentation for income, how much assets you have, by how much money do you have in the bank. I don't look at someone who just has good credit, good money in the bank, and all the stability. A lot of people in between can afford to have a house. So that being said, it's pretty easy to get a house as long as you qualify. Now, the next question is going to be, how do you qualify, right? Okay.
Let's go into that. Yeah, that got
Here's the loaded
it's
part
organic.
Yes. So, I mean, the online application is pretty easy. Essentially, just think about it like we are looking for your last 2 years of where you've worked, where you've lived. Because what I'm going to do with that information is I'm going to start looking at what purchase price you can actually afford versus what income you have. Now, once I actually decide this, which usually only takes about 24 hours, I give you a call.
Unless it's with me.
And then it's 15 minutes. But then I give you a call and we really start going over what you're comfortable with. Because just because you might qualify for a $500,000 house doesn't mean that you are comfortable with that payment. So my specialty, at least what I think, is just to make sure that people are very comfortable, no matter what they qualify for. So the simple answer is it's easy to see what you can afford, but does everyone qualify? Unfortunately not, but a lot of people do.
So when someone's looking for a home, what would be like the best structure for you to see? Like, so is it like they've been in their apartment or they've been in their rental home or what have you for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years? Have they been at their job for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years? Like, what are you looking for? Like, what are like the good things that a person needs? Yeah. Like what would be a good, parameter to have them in?
Well, I mean, the job, so there's always like things to get away from the just generalization, right? Like if you graduated college and you are in your first job, you do not have 2 years worth of history. But what I do use is your transcripts to create that history. But most of the time you want to limit it to 2 years in the same profession. It doesn't have to be with the same job. It can be with a bunch of jobs, but it has to be the same line of work because we're looking for a 2 year history, which creates stability in what we're looking at. Because we're risk assessors.
Right. Really,
we're looking at what's the possibility of this foreclosing or them not making payments. So, I mean, that's kind of the best answer, I think.
Okay. All right, cool. So for instance, if a person is brand new out of school, and then they get there, so how does that work with school then? Like you said, you use their transcripts. What can you explain that a little bit more for us?
The transcripts. So if you have transcripts, you obviously were going to college to be an engineer, a doctor, a whomever, right?
Right.
So you were doing the work. You just weren't getting paid for it yet. You were paying for it. So it's basically like paying it forward. Okay. The transcripts count towards your 2 year degree. Or not degree,
so then can you just use a letter, like an offer letter to then get qualified?
Mm-hmm. You can use an offer letter. And the thing with that is we utilize the income that's on the offer letter. One, it needs to be full-time though. Make sure it's full-time because a lot of people will try to give me offer letters for 20 hours.
Before you go on, what is an offer letter?
An offer letter. Yes, even better question. Okay, so when you graduate college, you want this thing called a job. And so you start interviewing, and then hopefully you get what you call a job offer letter. And a job offer letter just states how much you're going to be making, your yearly bonuses, expectations. It just highlights it in one little fail swoop. Okay. So it really allows me to see what income I can utilize.
Perfect. So I know that a lot of these things you guys know, but I want to make sure that people understand, people that are watching this, because I know them now, but let me tell you guys, I didn't know shit. I literally was like, I know a realtor, I know what that does, and I know what the lender does. And I didn't even really know what the lender meant. So guys, I want to break this down so that, again, you guys that are watching this down the road can find out, okay, that's what they're looking for. And that's how this kind of ball gets rolling. Because again, it's a lot of information and it can be very overwhelming. And that's why you want to find someone that's going to help you with all of that and just say, hey, you know what? I literally just sent Kristin all my stuff, and then her team just did everything, and it was like magic. It made everything easy. It did take a lot of information because I'm not so organized with some of my paperwork, so I had to find some things and go through some stuff. So, guys, when it comes down to that kind of stuff, the offer letter and things, and you're getting ready for a job, what are the things that what are they going to have to give you So again, you had 2 year, we know we need like a 2-year window of you working or going to school. So what are some of the other things that you need as far as like,
just like in general. Okay, so then I'm also looking to see what your 2-year like living history has been. Are you paying rent right now? Is there going to be payment shock, right? Because if you have been living with your parents, I'm going to have to look at if this is going to really hurt you to all of a sudden be paying $2,000.
Right.
So, and that is actually in the algorithm when we run approvals. So all of these tiny little things, where you've lived, how many times have you moved? I'm also looking at credit. Credit is the biggest one. And it's the one that I think most people will have the most questions on because a lot of people don't know anything about it.
What would be a good credit score then for a home, for a first time home buyer? Because I know that a lot of people, like back when I was younger, I paid cash for everything. And so I didn't have any credit. I was a bartender. I made a shit ton of money. And I was like, I had no credit. So I had to go get a credit card. It was called a secured credit card, guys. I had to I had to give Chase Bank $1,000 of my own money. And then I could use that credit card, which was my own money. It made no freaking sense. I was like, that's my money. Why do I? But they were like, no, you're going to have to use this and pay something off. So I put my phone bill on it and then I would pay that off every month. And it was this whole kind of thing. Credit's such a weird thing, but it did work out. And so I got that credit and then it kind of boosted my credit score up a little bit here at a time.
And hacks actually for credit. If you have a kid or a young, like a teenager, 17, 18 years old, add them as an authorized user. You don't even need to give them the card, but that's what I did for my sister. That's what my father did for me. And I came out of school just with a decent credit score because you added, and I had some credit history. So my credit history is even before I was actually had my own credit card, and I was able to apply for a credit card right when I'm 18 or 19. So that's kind of another little like
that's
tip.
Awesome.
But these two things that you guys just said are the two things that I pretty much advise anyone who's calling me 6 months to a year in advance. Secured credit card, the reason that he had to do that, one, probably because you had no credit. But two, it's like a credit card on crack because it gives you so much more good credit than just a regular credit card. So you gave yourself the best chance at getting good credit quickly. Because a lot of times if someone doesn't have credit, you can get a secured credit card and in 3 months you'll have probably a 700 score. That's how powerful it is.
Absolutely.
But the question that you had asked is what's a minimum credit score? I would say 620. You're going to see lenders that say 580. Let me just tell you what happens if you have a 580. You get the worst rate, the worst loan, and you are miserable. So my goal is to try to get you from a 580 to a 620 to now make this a much better loan, a much better payment, a much better everything.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So 580, would that be someone who is just like maybe just got a credit card, like maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago?
No.
Or is what caused someone to have such a low credit score?
Collection.
Yeah.
Defaults. Late payments, defaults, charge off, foreclosure, bankruptcies, all of these things. But the thing is they're all, you can mitigate against almost every single one of these things. So like if someone calls me and they're not ready today to buy, I'm giving them a roadmap. Okay, you have a 550 credit score. Let's distance ourselves from the negativity, the collections. Let's try to pay off medical because those now have to be removed from your credit report. And then let's focus on creating a plan that's going to make you comfortable and happy.
Absolutely.
Because someone right now with a 580 credit score is going to get a 9% interest rate. Who is happy with a 9% interest rate?
Nobody.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I always just try to look at it as the relationship for life with my clients. It might not be what's going to get me a deal today, but it will in 6 months.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. So that's great information because I know that a lot of people maybe are just kind of getting out there and trying to figure out what they're doing. So say someone has all that under wraps and then they've got kind of their credit under, say maybe they had bad credit, they moved out 6 months later, they do this, they do that, they fix it, it's back up now it's past that 620. Now, what are the things that they should be looking at doing as far as getting you, like, what kind of paperwork do they need to start kind of, I'm trying to give you guys what I didn't do, so that's what I'm trying to do here. What are the things that we should get together? Because again, I didn't know I was going to need my paycheck stubs from the last 2 years and all the other things. What are the other things now? Now they've got the credit down, they've got what are the other paperwork they need to get going?
Yes. Okay. So first thing first, it's usually 30 days worth of pay stubs, last 2 years worth of tax returns, last 2 years worth of W-2s, copy of your driver's license, and then we need a bank statement showing where the funds for closing are going to be. In your case, because you do so well in outside income, I did get year-end pay stubs. So if you earn commission overtime, also get the year-end pay stubs from the previous 2 years, because then I can count all the overtime, any bonuses, all that stuff, all the unique ways of being paid, I can count with the end of your pay stubs.
Cool. All right, sweet. So, all right, so got the pay stubs, got all that stuff down, and then what are then the next steps, like as far as that goes?
Yes. So once I have all that, I'm in love because I love numbers. Give them all to me. So I start like putting them into your file, right? You make this much a month. Okay, this is the house that you're trying to qualify for. This is where we find what purchase price you qualify for, what your income allows you to buy as far as the house. So, and that is exactly what happens after you give me all of that because I'm looking at it. Right.
They're looking at what your car payments are and they're deducting that from your income because there's a debt to income ratio from how much you make plus what your expenses are. So if you have a very expensive car lease, and we've seen deals completely fall through because of just the fact that they have a super high car payment.
Or debt in general.
Yeah.
Your debt is calculated for sure.
So when I was first learning about credit, I was told that you're not supposed to spend over 30% of what you have on a credit card or like in your credit limit. So say for instance, you have a $10,000 credit limit on a credit card. You shouldn't spend over like $3,000 or $4,000 on it so that it doesn't look like you're overexpending on that credit. And then, it still looks good on your credit because you have that $10,000 credit limit on there. Is that correct?
Yes, it's debt utilization. So 30% is like the peak for reporting to the credit bureaus. So if you go over that, your credit score actually gets worse.
Yeah.
I mean, this is coming from someone who even like, for example, I'll just give you a real world, like my credit score was at 830, but then I needed to max out my credit card to pay for a lot of things. And then it went down to a 730. That's how powerful debt utilization is. That's 100 points that my credit dropped because I went way over the 30%. Absolutely. I mean, I brought it down.
And once you bring it down, then it comes back.
Exactly. It will go back up. But I mean, utilization of debt is a huge thing. Try to keep it under 30% if you can.
So no maxing out your credit cards, guys. So if you get a credit card, don't max it out. So I was told to just think of it as you don't have $10,000 you can spend. You have that 30%. So spend around $3,000, $4,000 on it.
And spend what you can. And that's a great way to like actually gain just pay it off.
Yeah.
At the end of the month, use it. I love points. I'm a points junkie. So use your credit cards, but pay them off at the end of the month. And that way you just have you're accumulating all these points. You have all the protections that credit cards offer, but at the same time, you're helping your credit score because they're seeing that you're reliable. You're making your payments on time. And then you can keep expanding your credit limit, which helps with your utilization. So your power of spending continues to grow.
Yeah. So I heard, and maybe this, again, perfect people to ask for. I heard that if you pay your credit cards off every month, that actually is negative. So it's not negative.
Okay, this is the
see guys, see where I'm going, guys. Okay. You are getting so much knowledge today because I have all the questions.
That is such a good question that no one has literally ever asked me before. If you were first establishing credit, you need to have a revolving balance, which is what you're saying. Keep $5 on it, pay it down to $5, but keep that debt revolving at least until you get your credit score above 700. After that, it actually helps you.
Okay.
So it doesn't hurt you after you have established credit. It will hurt you and basically not count at all if you pay it off.
See, that's what I was told. I was told that it's going to work against you. And maybe that was when I first got my credit cards because I was like, should I just pay them off? And they're like, no, don't do that.
Keep it
I was like, okay. So I've always just in my head thought I need to have all these things going on because I was like, I don't know anything about it. So I'm glad you answered that.
That's such a good question.
See, guys.
Asking these.
I got some good questions. So, okay, cool. So now you know, guys, if you get it over 700 and 700, what is a good credit score? Like, I mean, we said 620 to buy a home, but what is a good credit score? Okay. Like average?
Average credit score, I would say, would be right around 685.
Okay.
That is where you can start going conventional. So, and I know nobody knows what conventional is.
Yeah, what is conventional?
Okay, so conventional financing, you got conventional financing. It basically is Fannie and Freddie Mae back. I realize as I'm saying this that it's going to be even more confusing. But it's basically the most
It's your more
used,
traditional.
It's the most used loan product where you have FHA, VA, and USDA, which are all government-funded programs. But they do have a lot of first-time homebuyer things with those as well. And a lot of good benefits. But conventional everyone wants because
the rates are the most competitive.
Well, not necessarily, but they will win a deal. Whenever the market gets crazy, they don't want to see government loans. They want to see conventional because it means that we don't have to really care about the appraisal. which is a whole other conversation, but I'm going to just stop down that rabbit hole. Oh my God.
See, guys, there's so much going on here. So again, we're going to try to make it just not as much, because we may need to do a part 2 or part 3 to this, but this is just getting you guys the basic information. So the foundation information of what you need to know about getting ready to buy a home. Okay, so now you know, what a good credit score is. Now you know what not to spend. Again, we just found out that even a lease being in your car or your car note being too high. So like if you get that Maserati and it's $1,000 a month, that's costing you a lot of money. Then you've got insurance on top of that car. And then you also got how expensive that car is to maintain. So you got to think about that. I see a lot of people living in apartments and driving very expensive vehicles. And I was one of those people at one point, but then I got the mom car and I was like, I'm going to buy a house. And, everything dropped. Like my car payments dropped, my insurance dropped, how much gas I was spending dropped because I was like, I got in GMC, I got out of my Infinity, and it's saving me money. It's kind of weird. But again, those are things maybe to think about too as well. Just for your own knowledge is, looking at how much you're spending, again, that's something that I just didn't know. So that I'm glad you said that about that. So that's really cool. So, okay. So we know the good credit score. Okay. We know what we're now looking for. Now when you buy the home, now that's when everything shifts over to Jen's world. And so Jen, did you see her? She's itching. She's been ready. She's been ready. So when I first,
we work together so much on all of the logistics, and it's always, and a lot of times it kind of depends on who they're coming through. Most of the time it's my point of contact, and then we hand it off to Kristin, and they're always asking these questions. So Kristin and I've got a crash course on lending from Kristin because I speak with her every single day. And you want a realtor that is going to be very intertwined with the lending process and know the things that I know that Kristin's looking for, right? So even just having qualifying questions with your realtor saying, hey, these are the things that are kind of the foundation of what we're looking for, and then handing you off to Kristin where she can get the strategy going of specifically what is going to work best for you.
Yeah. So many people go to a realtor first. I went backwards, I think. Is that backwards? Yeah. Is that the right way to do it? Or is that the wrong way?
I kind of so a lot of times what I do is for example, I was with you, so you instantly got pre-approved with me, and I love you so much that I wanted you to get a good deal. And I did not want you with someone I didn't know, because a true partnership gets shit done.
There you go.
And she knowing how I work and vice versa, we were able to get seller paid concessions. We were able to get you a better rate. We had a strategy in place. Okay. So I think it's important. So I found my lender first. Then she said, I have this person. And of course I trusted her wholeheartedly because I knew that she had my best interests at heart. And then, when I talked with Jen, everything kind of just worked. And it was very easy, guys. It was very easy. It was actually scary easy because once I got all my paperwork and all my bullshit to her, that was a hot mess.
She gets to be the realtor.
God, I was like, I'm sorry. I'm trying to find my W-2. So, all that stuff. When I finally got all that to her, it was like, okay, then guys, the ball just rolled so fast. And we saw I think 16 properties, maybe not that many, but we saw that many in 2 days. But with Jennifer, what I want to talk about is the things, what we're looking for, just kind of with Kristin, the basics. So when we're looking for a home, the price tag you're looking at, what is an HOA? What are the things you're looking for? Because I was like, what is HOA?
That's even more loaded than your question, Kristin. You got the easy one.
No, we'll bring it basic. But again, these are things that, you don't know about when you're looking to buy a home. And so you're like, well, how come I have to pay these assholes $285 a month or whatever, or quarterly? And so all these things. So I want to get that information to you guys too, because again, it's so important that you hear all of this so that you feel like you are more ready. And that's, I think, the word. I didn't know how ready I was. And then whenever it was approved, I was like, shit, I'm ready. And so and I was like, okay, put the big boy pants on, let's go. And so then Jen, so Jen, okay, so again, we know that you are the realtor extraordinaire and you helped me get my home. So when we were looking for my home, I'll just use myself as an example. We were looking in that range between 300 and 360, 370, somewhere in that range. That's what we're looking for, 360K, 375K. And we were looking in Austin. And so that was not good. Because let me tell you, there was a lot of condos for sale, but we already lived in an apartment and we didn't want to move into something that we had conjoined walls with another person again. I just didn't feel like that was what I wanted. I wanted detached. Okay. So I told Kristin kind of what we were Jennifer, what we were looking for, and Kristin knew too. But I wanted to get out of that whole feel. And so I gave her kind of what I was looking for. She already knew the numbers from Kristin, what we were looking for. And so what did you do to narrow that down? Like, let's start there. How did you narrow down what we saw? Because she sent me like a list and said, tell us what that list is. Because I want people to know what it is.
No, totally. So, I mean, for starters, definitely having a relationship with a lender, right? Whenever the lender and the realtor are working together to finalize a product for a client, it makes a world of difference. Because speaking to Kristin, I knew your pain points. I knew where you wanted to be with your monthly payment. I knew what you were comfortable with putting down. So I was looking for a very specific property in terms of that I can negotiate concessions for example, right? So just putting those pieces together, I can then narrow down what you were looking for. So for his specific scenario, we were looking for somewhere, since we wanted to have a specific down payment and a specific monthly, we were looking for somewhere where I could get concessions to help buy down your rates, help bring down your monthly payment. Plus, we were looking for something that didn't have crazy taxes, right? Because then once you homestead, your taxes wouldn't be absolutely astronomical. So that helps with your payment as well. Because as much as people think about what a payment looks like, there's so many other variables, right? Your payment is not only just the amount, your loan amount, right? We were looking at homes for $375 that would have the same payment as a home for $325.
That was so nuts to me, guys. When I was looking at homes, like my home that I purchased was more expensive than some of the homes we were looking at and I was like, how is this it's so confusing. But let's go back to that word concessions, because that is something I didn't understand and I didn't know what it was. And so what is a concession? And when someone says, oh, we're going to get concessions down, or,
absolutely.
What does that mean?
So it's a paragraph in the Texas contract that basically allows the seller to contribute cash towards the buyer's closing costs. And you can use those concessions for a slew of things, whether it's buying down the rate, you can pay for closing costs, title policies, whatever the fees are for originating those loans. And that is going to be the biggest thing that concessions are going to help with. A down payment can't come from concessions. So that is the only thing that no matter what you will need to bring to the table. But when I'm working with my clients, I always try to max out concessions, and I'm like the concession queen in my office because I get some crazy concessions for my clients. And it's just the idea of being able to pay for the transaction, bring your down payment to closing, and basically covering all of the other costs that are associated, right? And that includes escrows. A lot of people don't know what escrows are. And escrows are basically when you're calculating your mortgage, and maybe Kristin can talk to this a little bit more.
It's your taxes and insurance. But an escrow account is every time you make your monthly payment, the principal and interest payment pays for your loan, and then the payment for your insurance and taxes goes into this one account where it sits until it's due, and then we pay that on your behalf.
Exactly.
So we don't have to pay it. So they take care of that. So that's awesome because I didn't know what escrow was either. So I was like, who is she? So like, where are we giving our money to? What's going on? So I didn't know that either. So that's great information. Okay. So
when you're setting up your escrows in your closing costs, people don't realize when you're looking at your final cash to close, a good percentage of that, depending on also when you buy the house, is escrow funds, right? Because they're calculating the amount of money that the previous owner, the seller, has lived in the house. So let's say it's 3 months. Let's say our closing is March 31st. So they need to have 3 months of taxes and insurance that are put in, or taxes more so, into that account. So you're paying for the remaining balance so they can make that payment on your behalf.
But then there is a credit given by the seller.
And that pays for that part.
Well, we do collect 3 months worth of cushion. Or 2 months worth of cushion first month. So it's a little bit different than what you just said, but pretty much the same principle. We're collecting 3 months of taxes and insurance to make sure that inflation doesn't get the better of you at the end of the year. Yeah.
And so all this, again, is taken care of. This is why you need to trust your people. Because I'm telling you, I would have never known any of this stuff. So this is great information. So I'm hoping that I know that some of you may have like little number signs. Like, what was that meme, that lady who's like looking at all like that? I know that it sounds scary, but trust me, guys, it really wasn't that scary at all. Actually, it was to me, again, I just was like, I trust her. So she's going to do all that. I'm going to just let you do that. Okay, so we know now what concessions are. Concessions help with actual cost, and concessions can even be used for household goods, like say appliances and things, or is that true or no?
Not particularly. So you write in a contract, you also have non-realty items. So that'll be more so where you're negotiating specifics, but that also goes into your closing costs. So you can actually, there's like a line item, I believe, for non-realty, and that'll be deducted. So if we have concessions, can we use those funds?
It ends up washing out because it's a monetary amount. So if it's $10K, it's going to be $10K that you don't have to bring to closing. So therefore you have $10K to purchase those things after closing.
Got it.
Before.
Yeah, it's not cash that
items is what you're talking about. Anything inside the structure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I'm thinking of like all the questions that people have asked me. So that's another one too.
Yeah,
so
in Texas, it doesn't convey washer, dryer, and fridge. Those don't convey. So very often we will negotiate that on behalf of our clients. I always try to get those for no cost to my clients. But again, concessions, if we did have concessions, that would go towards that.
Okay, cool. All right. So, and thank you. All right, so yeah, a lot of information. Okay. So what would be a good down payment on a home that say 375? We'll just throw that number out there for you, 375. And again, I know this is going to be kind of tricky to answer because of insurance and like how much, the insurance and taxes and all that kind of stuff adds in. But like, what would be a percentage of money? Basically, what I want people to understand is how much money should they save to put down on a house?
Totally. So if you're a first time home buyer and you are saving for your first house, I would save up, say you guys are wanting $100,000 or $300,000 house or whatever purchase price you're wanting to save up for, do that purchase price and do it times 3.5%. Because really, no matter what your credit score is, we can get you at least to an FHA, which is they accept lower credit scores for 3.5%.
Absolutely.
So, and then we can always negotiate the closing costs.
I'm going to do that real fast. So what is 300? Yeah. So yeah, because I don't know. I count. I use my fingers and just so 300,000 times 0.3
times 3.5, and then just hit the percent sign.
3.5. I think I messed it up. Y'all, I can't even 3.5%. There we go.
And then
Equals. So 10,500. Okay, so that's what a down payment would be on a $300,000 home at 3.25%. So just so you know, I would say $11,000 probably.
I would really save up more like 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
15.
So why 15?
Because we can negotiate some closing costs, but just like I'm trying to think. It depends on the house because if it's competitive, you can't ask for seller concessions.
So that's the tricky part, right? Yeah. Depending on what your client is looking for and where their boundaries are and where their edges are, you have to be very strategic on the types of homes that you're trying to get into, right? And there was homes that we've seen that were like, oh, we love this, but it's 2 days on market and there's a lot of activity happening to this house. That is a home that unfortunately I'm not going to have a lot of leverage on your behalf to be able to negotiate seller concessions. So just knowing where you're at in the process I think it's a really important way to picking out a home because I don't know many people that necessarily can get into a home. I think being able to save if you have a decent job and good credit, you can get into a home. And I think that the numbers scare people away. They're like, how much money do I need? A lot of people still think you need 20% down to buy a house and you don't need that. And it's just more so about the expectations of the type of home that we're going to be looking at, right? Because we're looking at a home that maybe sit on the market for a little bit longer. If concessions is something that we really, really need, right? I have $11,000. I really want to get into a home. We can work with you. It's just,
because
it takes a little bit more strategy.
Well, there's down payment assistance programs as well that can cover your down payment. Earlier, we said you can never touch your down payment, but with specific programs, you can. So if you're someone who truly doesn't see saving up $15,000, save up $6,000 because I can get you in a down payment assistance program that will cover your entire down payment, and then you just have to pay the remaining closing costs.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's very interesting. I didn't know that either. Yeah. I didn't do that. So
the rates are much higher.
Okay, so the rates are higher?
The rates are higher. You have to think if you are the riskiest client if you have no money saved. I do a ton of these, so there's absolutely no judgment on people who they haven't been able to save, but they still want a house. So in that case, I utilize all the grants and bonds in Texas to give pretty much free money. I mean, it sits there as a second lien for 3 years, but after 3 years, it just kind of disappears.
Okay.
And then it's yours. You never make a payment. It never earns interest. It is away. Now, a year ago, those rates were 4 or 5%. Now they're 7 and 6%. So that does make affordability a bit of a challenge. But if there's a will, man, I'll find a way.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. All right, cool. All right, so now we know what concessions are. We know like what a good down payment is. And again, this is something I didn't know. What is an HOA?
Totally.
And what does that mean? What does that mean? What does an HOA mean?
An HOA, Homeowners Association. So in Texas, we have so many HOAs. There's so many communities here, and you have just these big plots of land, and there's basically a governing force that you pay for maintenance. Some communities have pools, amenities, common areas that are maintained. And they're also, with an HOA, carries deed restrictions. And those restrictions prevent basically your neighbors from painting their house purple and throwing a party on your front lawn, because it kind of gives rules and boundaries within the community of the use that you can have with your home. Some HOAs are more lax than other HOAs. Some HOAs are extremely strict. Don't leave your garbage cans out for too long. And depending on the HOA is depending on that fee. So neighborhoods typically with pools and amenity centers and clubhouses, they're going to have a bit higher HOAs. And then neighborhoods that it's just more common areas, those HOAs are a little bit lower. But those HOAs are factored in when we're looking at a payment. So when you're seeing your payment, you're also seeing what those fees are going to be, just so you know
as a whole
what your monthly payment's going to be.
So I thought that was really cool, because when you sent me all of the listing, when you would send Jennifer sending you a house,
and I'll explain what that is.
I was like, this little email was so cool, because I was seeing all of this stuff and going, okay, well, this is what the payment would be, kind of what they're thinking it's going to be. These are what the HOAs are. This is what it is. And then it would just say, like, if it's a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, whatever, 2-car garage, this, that. It starts giving all of like the logistics of the house. And so I thought that was really cool, because then I could look at it and see, well, okay, well, why are these so much more? Or the taxes. The taxes were crazy on some of them. And then some of them were like none. And you're like, well, that's crazy. Like, our HOA is only $88 quarterly. Yeah. So that's so low. And we have a beautiful neighborhood. And they did send me an email with a picture of weeds, because we moved into our house yet. We literally weren't even moved in yet. And they were like, there's some weeds in your front yard. I'm like, we haven't lived in the house yet. Can you calm down? We haven't even moved in yet. But, we'll get there. But again, I think that's also kind of nice, because it makes sure that the neighborhood looks really good. We do have a private dog park right down the street. There's a bunch of parks in our area too. I think we even have a pool, a community pool, I think. Yeah. So again, so that's what HOA stands for, and that's what it means, and that's what you might have in your area. Now, if you don't have an HOA, then you can pretty much do whatever you want. HOAs, I hear that they are strict on Airbnb. Is that correct? Do you know?
It depends on. HOAs come in such a broad range of restrictions. Some HOAs, it's just more common grounds. It's more so people don't run businesses out of their house to maintain the certain look of the community. Other HOAs that are just larger master plan communities typically have this to maintain a certain order and aesthetic in the neighborhood. They're going to be a little bit more strict. So those HOAs, you're not going to be able to really do Airbnbs. Neighborhoods that have a little bit more laxed HOAs, typically they won't give you a hard time about it.
Cool. Yeah, because I knew that was a question someone asked about, because they were looking at buying property and they were wanting to put it on Airbnb. And I was like, ooh, check with your HOA. Because
you absolutely have to.
If you're going to buy property and you want to Airbnb it or whatever, and you can't because your HOA, it's a hot mess.
Like, you can't Airbnb here.
Yeah.
It's like forbidden.
Of course, yeah.
So, because you don't want parties.
Yeah.
Neighbors are paying a higher HOA fee to make sure that there's not a bunch of ragers every weekend.
Exactly.
Right.
And you have a clubhouse and you have a pool and you have all of these things that kind of bring in. And that's something that, HOAs are one of those conversations that either you love them or you hate them. Right?
I think you love and hate them.
Yes, at the same time, for sure. You definitely have kind of a love-hate relationship, because I think that the beauty of HOAs is I think it really does help maintain a certain aesthetic for your community. If you go into resale value, definitely is maintained a little bit easier when you're in an HOA community, right? Because homes, you don't have grass growing up to your knees, and you don't have garbage laying around. They keep a certain aesthetic for when people are driving through the neighborhood. If your neighbor is selling your house, you want to make sure that your neighbor's grass is mowed. Yeah. And I think that that's where people prefer HOAs in that sense. On the other sense, there's restrictions, right? You need approval to do things to your property, right? If you want to change things structurally, if you want to add additional, something in your backyard, even if it's just a shed, you need approval. You need structural approval for that thing. And that can get a little bit frustrating at times, especially I know for ourselves and Kristin, we live on a little bit of acreage, right? I want to just be able to put in a pool, or I want to put in a shed in my backyard, and I need approval for those things because I'm in an HOA.
So, all right, so that's a really great question. I have in my own head because, all right, so you just said something cool. I actually am wanting to put like a greenhouse in my backyard because I have a really, really big backyard for what I was looking for. And I found out that our house, because it's an upstairs downstairs house, has more backyard, a larger lot, which I was like, well,
because of footprints.
Yes, because I didn't. The things you don't think about, people. I didn't know, because like the house right next door to us is just like a ranch style, which is just like all one level, right? Ranch style.
Yeah.
And so basically, I know, I'm trying to learn, y'all. So this ranch style house, it has like half of our backyard. And so I was sitting on my porch yesterday with my dog, and she was doing zoomies, going crazy. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad we have a bigger backyard. So something to think about too if you have animals. You might want to. I didn't really want an upstairs house, upstairs downstairs, because I'm 43, my legs hurt. But I was like, maybe this will work my butt out better because I'll be going up and downstairs. But I mean, I was so excited about the big backyard, and so I realized, oh, that's actually a change. And so when I was looking at all the other houses in the area, I was realizing that the houses that are upstairs, have an upstairs, downstairs, they have a bigger backyard. So something to think about too. So I'd have to ask my HOA about my garden and about my greenhouse probably. So
it depends a lot on the size, and you'll look at your deed restrictions, and the deed restrictions are going to say like if it's a certain size, sometimes if it's over your fence level, if it's something that you can see from the street, those are things. It's more so things that you won't move, right? Where you put a shed in your backyard, that's not something that you're just going to like pick up and bring with you. So those are things that are a little bit more permanent. Definitely get approvals, because I've seen horror stories with people putting up a shed and they poured a foundation for it and they put the shed up, and then all of a sudden the HOA is like, you didn't approve that, you need to take it down, right? Or you have to go through that process, and it can be lengthy and annoying and sometimes expensive.
Yeah.
Because the HOA has the ability to put a lien on your property.
Yes, they do.
What does that mean? What does a lien on your property mean?
Oh my goodness.
Do you want to do it?
I'm going to give her all of the numbers.
So good.
What's a lien?
You're getting so much information.
So a lien against your property is basically like a debt that is owed, and only certain people can put it actually on your house. One being solar, two being HOA, and there is a few other things as well. But that basically means that you cannot sell your house without paying them first. And this happens, I see it a lot in the title companies. You'll get the title commitment, and then you'll see that someone has a tax lien or an HOA lien or something like that. And that basically just means you have to pay them back before you can get the proceeds, or you just don't move. Okay. And so the HOA specifically will reach out to whoever they have in legal department to reach out to some sort of title company to put the lien on the property.
Interesting. Okay, cool.
Yep.
Good information. Because again, I personally was irritated by the email, but I also got it. So I am kind of happy because, again, I am happy that my neighborhood it is a nice neighborhood. When I drive through, I don't feel like I'm nervous to walk my dog at night. Again, we have a beautiful, maintained, right down the block dog park. And so that kind of stuff was really important for me too, because again, we just got our puppy. And so we want her to be able to feel safe when we're walking down the street at night and things like that. So I feel like that's also a good thing. So, all right, cool. So back to houses. All right. So tell us, what was that list you sent me every single day? I got like one, and I'm still. I'm a good interviewer, guys. Yeah.
So what I sent you was actually, it's called a matrix. It's a portal. So it's our MLS system. So realtors, we pay very high fees to have a MLS system, which is a multiple listing service. And what that does is when we're inputting a property, whether it's for lease or if we have clients who are purchasing, this is where we do our searches. This gives us English, all of the latest information for properties that are available. Nowadays, that was the way that we typically would share our clients, right? So you came to me, this is the things that I'm looking for, and I would set up the search for you. A lot of times people are now searching on Zillow and realtor.com. The problem with these sites, though, are they're not giving you the latest information on this property. They're not giving you necessarily the accurate information that you want to see. They're giving you the information that is kind of bare minimum, where in our portal, it's really itemizing. Like, this is the taxes. This is what the assessed value is. This is the neighborhood. This is the parcel, lot, flood information. All of that stuff you can see through the portal. So if you're searching for a home, absolutely have your realtor set you up on this search, because it just makes it so much more clean cut for you to be able to see all the information that you have. You can favorite things on the portal. You can leave me little comments, which then I get a notification that you left me a comment, and I can take a look at it, schedule showings for you all through the portal. So what that does is I set basically a certain criteria. So you're looking for a three and over bedroom house. You're looking for this price range in these areas. And I can filter through school zones. I can filter through areas, zip codes, just map area, right? I can draw a big circle in like areas that you want to go. And all of that automatically, we can set it up on an auto email. So every day you get an email, either first thing in the morning or first thing in the evening, of all of the listings that match that criteria. And so that way we stay on top of the market. And then you also get the email of like, hey, under contract, closed. And you kind of get to become an expert in the market, because you start to see all the properties that are coming into your inbox, and you're like, oh, okay, I see that this lasted just a day, right? Like this lasted a little bit longer. Oh, that's still available. And you get to kind of be a little bit more hands-on with more specifically what you're looking for, rather than like on Zillow or realtor.com, where it's hard to get specific, right? You start to see, oh, but what about this? And it starts to lose focus. You start to lose focus a lot.
So I realized that myself, because when I was looking at Zillow, I even looked at our home just because I was being nosy. I was looking all the time, like every day on Zillow. Our house said it was still for sale for like a month after. And so I was like, no, it's not. And so, and then I looked just the other day, I looked, and then it finally said, oh, offer was. So guys, again, these things don't always show you what you're looking for. And I also did not see anything on there about taxes and stuff like that. So when you think about, you're looking at, okay, well, it says, this is going to be a $2,200 a month payment and blah, blah. It may not be because of the taxes. And so that was something I was like, whoa. Okay.
And what your down payment is.
Oh my God. The biggest question that I get by far. The calculator says my payment's going to be this. That calculator does not have any idea what that previous owner has on their taxes. Whether that be an over 65, where their taxes stayed frozen the second that they did that, fully disabled, homestead, and there's huge homestead caps.
Huge.
So they're utilizing previous year tax number without any sort of consideration.
Oh, forget about that. Even rates, what your down payments are, they're estimating your insurance, which is always higher than what they're showing there. They're not calculating what the HOA is properly. Yep. Like there was just
they're wrong.
I just want to say that I was shocked about all that stuff, because again, you go on these sites and you're thinking, I know I can afford that now. And so then I would look at things and I'm like, shit, I can't afford that. Because if the taxes or something was like, off in the numbers. And so that really kind of was annoying to me, because I didn't know that. And so again, going back to
Mm-hmm.
finding people that are going to help you, which is so important, because again, I didn't even know what an MLS sheet was. I didn't know. So when I was getting all this information, I was like, wow, this is so descriptive. But it was so good, because then I was like, well, I hate this house, or I love this house, and this was way too much. This was way too much.
And you press delete, and it's out of your site.
And you can do all these things and make it great. And then another thing that I also loved and hated was I loved that it showed pictures in the MLS. But let me tell you what happened to a couple of the houses. Some of those houses put these freaking picture filters up where everything looks like they put like a digital furniture in. No. So remember that house that we called the Trap?
Oh, yes.
So this house was beautiful.
Oh my God. It was an open door house.
It was an open door home. It was a beautiful open door is basically a company that buys homes and then they just Airbnb them, or they lease them to workers in the areas, or sell them, whatever. But it was just interesting. But this house was beautiful, and it was in a great neighborhood. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And it was the perfect size, everything, backyard pulled up. And I was like, what the hell is this? Because I went inside, there were holes.
Catfishing.
Yeah, it was a house cat.
I'm calling you out.
I sent Jennifer pictures like, look at this. I mean, the linoleum was lifting up in the kitchen. There was water damage on the inside, broken glasses. I mean, there was holes in walls. I mean, it was insane. And this house looked like it had probably been a beautiful home 5, 6, 7, maybe even 10 years ago, but it just looked like it would run through the mill. Of course, it was a rental property, so they did some crazy shit to it, and it just was absolutely devastating because we were so excited about this house. It was in perfect price range, all the things. Taxes weren't super high. And then I walked in and I was like, so make sure also that you're looking at these digital photos. Because when I looked at the photo, I was looking at my phone and I was like, this is the room. I was like, this is not the room. There is like, looks like someone might have been murdered in this room. And there's still stains on the floor.
I remember that call. He's like, Jen.
I was like, this house, I literally felt like I needed to go shower afterwards. I needed an adult. I was like, I need an adult because I felt like I was violated. And it was just horrible. So guys, be careful.
That's the other side of realty that nobody sees is when you have to sometimes you're like, what is this? What did I step on? What did I hold?
Yeah.
It is another level of things.
Yeah, it was
real estate catfishing is a real thing. Hashtag catfishing.
They whitewashed that house, baby. Let me tell you. So it was interesting, guys. Interesting. So, all right. So I love all this information we're trying to get out. I'm going to ask just a few more questions. We're going to wrap it up. But so as a realtor, what would be one of the highlights you have for a first-time person? Say they haven't got a lender first. What are the things that they need to get you as far as information just to kind of get the ball rolling?
No, totally. And it's so interesting, right? In a perfect world, right? They come through a lender and then they find, but most of the time people, and the way that we connect with people is they're like, I love this house. I want to see this house, right? So it's kind of, you're being a little bit more reactive. So my first thing with clients is speak with a realtor that understands, hey, this is the thing that I'm looking for. Make sure they're asking you some level of qualifying questions, and then make sure that they are then immediately putting you in contact with a lender. And if they have a preferred lender, that is 9 out of 10 times, that is the person that you're going to want to speak to, because that relationship, just like we were talking about how we were able to get you such a great deal and such a great house, is because a lender and a realtor work so closely together on every single transaction that it is an invaluable resource to have, right? So, hey, I want this. I think I can afford around $500,000. I like X, Y, and Z. I'm then asking qualifying questions, right? Like, hey, let's get personal, right? What are we looking at? Like, what is a payment that you're comfortable with? How much cash do we have saved up? Do you have job history for the last 2 years? Where we can then start, and if those questions, one of those things aren't where they need to be, I'm having that honest conversation where it's like, look, maybe you just need to talk to Kristin and see, hey, these are some things that we need to tweak. So maybe you're not qualified today, but you can be qualified 6 months from now, right? Yeah. So it's such a dynamic approach of looking at real estate where it's like, hey, let's not be reactive. Let's be proactive, right? Let's get all of our numbers. Let's get all of our systems. Let's get to know each other in the beginning stages, so then when the right property does come up, we're ready to act, because we don't have this like, oh, okay, now we need to run. And that's when, and we can do it because we do it all the time. But, just, I think sometimes that pace can be really hard for a new home buyer, right? Where it's
also
like,
puts them in fight or flight too.
Yes.
So that's not like the best experience. She and I don't like to be reactive. We like people to have a good experience.
Absolutely. Right. Where they understand what they're walking into. Like, hey, these are the numbers. This is what I'm comfortable with. Hey, I understand what it means, like HOA, taxes. And we set up buyer consultation. So, and we'll leave, whenever there's comments on the video, if you want to, like, Kristin and I will chime in and answer questions. Yeah. And we can set up buyer consultations happily. And we'll literally can schedule a time that we're both on a call speaking with you exactly what your needs are. Yeah. And that's always the best way to start the process, because I think that we live in a world where you're like, oh, I see this shiny new thing. And, in our industry, that happens to be a house, which is a huge financial decision where you should definitely have the people on your team that are going to walk you through that process as clean cut as possible.
Cool. So I think that's perfect information, because I think that when it comes to buying a home, it just sounds so scary, and it sounds like, gosh, you'll never, ever be able to get there. I mean, and I'd never thought that, honestly, I'd ever be out of my apartment. And now I'm just like, how did I ever live there so long? Especially, with 2 adults and then a puppy, just crazy. But it did come so much faster, and it was so much easier with this team, and I just love them so much. Just love them for helping us get into the place that we're just going to call. I think that, honestly, because I hate moving, I'm like, this might be our home unless we get real rich and we're moving again. I almost died during this week.
Moving is tough.
It is tough for a lender and for a realtor.
Oh my
God!
gosh!
Like, going through the process was super stressful for me. because I'm a control freak.
Yeah.
That is the thing, though, if you're looking for realtors or lenders, make sure they communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if they do not communicate, you're going to feel lost, alone, and in the dark.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
they were literally, again, she was on flights and getting a hold of me. Kristen was texting me at 11 p.m.
I was texting her at 1 p.m., 1 a.m.
It was a constant rotation of I never felt like I was just like sitting there waiting for anything. Honestly, I really didn't, and that is just the truth. And guys, I'm not bullshit. So I will always tell the truth because that's how I roll. And I wanted to share this information today because, again, I've had some people ask questions about, buying the home. Again, we're in Austin, but again, just because we're in Austin doesn't mean that they can't sell homes in other places because, guys, they're all over the place. Kristen was just telling me the other day that when I was doing her makeup and hair for the thing, she sells homes in my hometown. She was like doing Lynn. I was like, right? I was like, girl, that's crazy. That's so far. So again, 4 hours northwest of here. So again, she's all over the place. So if you're looking for them, so Kristen, where do you work? And then give your handles.
So I work out of Austin, but I do lend all over the state of Texas and Colorado, working on California. And as far as my handles, my Instagram is Kristin Stark CMG, and then my TikTok is Texas Homeslinger.
And she does some great videos. She does some great videos. I love watching
her market updates. Are amazing.
The market updates. Because I'm telling you, as I've gotten older, I am actually more interested in this shit. I was like, market. Now that I'm older, I'm like, what's the market? It's like you're looking at the Weather Channel, you turn into a dad. It happens. But yeah.
You live in it so much. We live this thing. Every single day we're talking about it. So just like the resources that we try to put out as much content and information as possible so we can get that in front of you.
Yeah, it was great. So I love watching all her videos. So yeah, of course, they are here for you. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below or leave them on the video. Look them up on social media, follow them, listen to all the things they're doing. And then Jennifer, where are you at? And tell us a little about your TikTok. I have TikTok. I don't do TikTok. I need to get on it. She needs to show me how to do TikTok.
I'm working on it. My Instagram handle is @JenSellsAustin. And I have my own team under Sprout Realty right now, and it is Ferrara Realty Group. So FerraraHomes.com.
Okay, perfect. So again, if you have any questions about things, please leave them down below. Again, follow them on social media. Just watch all their stuff. Again, amazing. Again, this was a very simple thing. We closed and how many was it? Like 3 weeks?
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
For sure.
Which I heard, I had a client literally that was on my table not too long ago. And she said it's taken her a year to close on her house. And I was like, what in the hell? And even my boss, whenever I told her that I was closing, like we started looking at homes at literally January 27th, I think is when we started looking. And then we closed on 3/2. So my boss is like,
and we could have closed sooner.
We could have closed sooner. But no.
We did it strategically for that.
And that's a good one. So when they closed, sorry, we're almost. So when we closed, we closed at 3/2. We didn't have actually monthly. Our mortgage doesn't start until May. So we had a whole month and a half, basically almost 2 months. 2 months to get kind of like settled in. So it didn't feel like that sting of moving and having to pay for movers, then have to, pay for deposits and paying for all this stuff to get moved because it's so expensive. And then, again, that just kind of gave us some cushion. So really awesome. So that was also because, again, they thought about all the things, and I didn't know.
We're closing. Yeah. We can close this in 2 weeks, but we're going to do it for 3 because we want to make sure that you don't have payments.
So we closed in 3 weeks, and again, that is something that I just didn't. I didn't know was even possible because I've heard so many horror stories of people having to wait months and months, 6 months, 7 months, all these things, and it's like, why does it happen so long? But I don't know. These two. Again, go see.
Doesn't happen.
No. All right, guys. So again, we are so thankful I am thankful that you guys are here. Again, this is probably one of my first videos I'm going to put out on my podcast, Texas Shares. So yeah, please follow Texas Shares. I'm super excited. It's going to be just sharing information. This podcast is literally going to be all over the place, but it's all about professionals and people that are actually wizards at their jobs, which these two ladies are. And I wanted to share them with you guys today because I wanted to make sure that you, if you are looking for a home, that you had some basic information, where to kind of get the ball rolling. Again, because I didn't know a lot of this stuff. And so they walked me through it. And I was very lucky to have them both in my court. But again, some of you guys don't have that. And so you don't know who to go to. So again, these two ladies here are here for you. If you have any questions, please ask them. Absolutely. And otherwise, again, thank you guys. Please like and subscribe to my YouTube channel at texasdelarosa.com. You can also find me through the web as far as, website, internet, all that. Texas Teller, I say. You just Google me. I'm everywhere. So again, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful day. Kristin, thank you so much for being here with Jennifer. Thank you for being here with me. And again, we will see you guys in the next video. Bye. Hang tight. Yeah, you can do it.
Blooper.